Hey there Internet, my name's Luxander, and we're making another video talking about the ContraPoints non-binary people problem. In my first video, I basically laid out the whole conflict. If you haven't seen the previous video, then you probably don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't want to rehash a lot of it, so there's a link up here for you to catch up and check in on that whole process. But in my previous video, I was discussing the accessibility needs and the accessibility conflict between binary trans people wanting people to correctly assume their pronouns because they've put a certain amount of effort into passing, and if someone asks them their pronouns instead of using those passive language clues to make the correct assumption, that can sometimes make binary trans people feel like they've just been clocked, like, oh, I'm trying to just stealth and be under the radar, and I can't do that, and like, oh no, now I feel very uncomfortable, right? So that's how some binary trans people feel about it. And on the other hand, you have a lot of non-binary people who feel that being asked for their pronouns or being given a space to introduce their pronouns is extremely valuable to their ability to function in the world, and having their gender assumed, typically people assume it to be binary, that's really deeply uncomfortable. And so I see this as an accessibility conflict, and my example that I used in the previous video, a lot of people seem to like and seem to get, is I have ADHD, I have friends who have ADHD, my friends need the captions on so that they can understand the movie when we're watching a movie together, but when the captions are on, I can't enjoy the movie because I'm reading the captions and I can't stop. So that's just an accessibility conflict, and I don't think there's a really good solution to the ADHD problem, except for me to just, suck it up and deal with the fact that that's the situation. My friend needs the captions on, and that's how I feel about that. But I want to talk about what I think the solution is to this accessibility conflict between binary trans people and non-binary trans people, because I do think that it's possible to have an amicable solution to the problem. I was seeing a lot of people in my comments on the previous video, and by the way, thank you so much for the engagement and all the, eyeballs on that video. That's crazy. This is a channel that averages less than 1,000 views per video. Appreciate it very much. So, a lot of people commented on that video and suggested that asking pronouns should be normalized. It should be normalized to ask someone their pronouns if you're not sure what their pronouns are. And on the surface, I think that seems like a good idea. It seems like a good idea, but I think that that's categorically the wrong way to go about this. I think that that's actually going to make life more difficult for non-passing trans people. If you have an ambiguous appearance, then you're basically going to spend your entire day wondering when someone is going to ask you what your pronouns are. It's the same kind of situation where you're being effectively clocked, and that, I think, is going to make a lot more gender non-conforming people deeply and wildly uncomfortable. I do have an alternative, which I've been suggesting to people for a while, that I think is the actual solution to the problem. And I'm going to say this, and when I say this, I want you to understand that this is not a problem that trans people can solve. It's not a problem that non-binary people can solve, or binary trans people, because if we do this, that is more likely going to cause further attention, to be honest. So what I'm about to do here is tell you what cis people need to do to fix this problem, okay? Asking for pronouns, in my opinion, is definitely not the solution to this problem. The actual way to solve this accessibility problem is if introducing yourself with your pronouns is so normalized that everybody can do it. Like this, okay, so here's the thing. Cis people need to normalize this even in cis spaces. Usually, when I give this recommendation to people, I tell them you should introduce yourself with your pronouns if you feel like you need to ask. So basically, if there is some cis person talking to me, a gender-ambiguous human being, and if they feel like they're confused about my pronouns and they really want to ask me, instead, what they should do is say, oh, by the way, my pronouns are this. And you give the trans person the opportunity to share their pronouns as well. However, you shouldn't only do it in that situation. In fact, it probably fits into a similar problematic issue as just asking for pronouns. If you only do it when you clock someone as trans, or you're talking to a gender nonconforming person who you can't make an easy determination for, okay? This needs to be normalized in all cis spaces first. I'm knocking things around because that's how serious my point is. Listen, this is the way to make this not a problem anymore for binary or non-binary trans people. If every space becomes one where it's just not even something people think of, like, hello, my name is Dr. Sadler and my pronouns are he, him, and I'm going to give this presentation on whatever. I don't care. You just need to normalize it in other spaces. I think that any cis person who wants to be an ally to trans people needs to put their comfort and other cis people's comfort on the line by, you know, if you're a cis woman who has a very typically binary feminine presentation, it's gonna make people think that you're fucking weird if you introduce yourself with your pronouns. But that is necessary work in order to make the world more accessible for trans people, binary and non-binary alike. If trans people are the only people doing this, we are just outing ourselves all day long, every single time. Especially for someone who uses non-binary pronouns, there is no safe way to do that as a non-binary person unless you are already in a space where people's introduction naturally includes their pronouns. This is what I'm driving towards, is that this is only something that cis people can normalize and do. So genuinely, if you want to be an ally, if you want to make the world a better place, if you're trans and you have a difficulty with this, you need to tell cis people or share this video to get them on the same page that this is not a problem that trans people can solve. We are just trying to navigate through the world in a very oppressive country for a lot of us. Most countries are fairly oppressive towards trans people, I would say. So basically, if you live on planet Earth and you're trans, you live in a country that is in some way oppressive about your liberties, okay? So this is definitely a situation where trans people are just screwed no matter what we do. Binary people have to deal with being asked their pronouns and like, wow, I just got clocked. Thanks so much for that. And non-binary people also have to deal with scrutiny on our bodies and on our expression, okay? So the only thing in this particular situation, this specific problem, I think this is the only way that this can be solved. And if you have any suggestions supplementing that, or if you think that ask culture in this particular instance is actually better, I would love to hear what you have to say about that. I just wanted to address this because so many people are saying like, well, if you're confused, you should just ask their pronouns. Absolutely not. I don't want to deal with that all day. No trans person wants to deal with that all day. That's not the way to go about this. Not even a little bit. I mostly just wanted to address this in this video. I understand that people have broader issues with Natalie Wynn, with the ContraPoints woman. People have issues with her other than this one thing that I've chosen to focus on and talk about, and I understand that. I would consider doing a video addressing some of her other comments, specifically as they relate to non-binary people, if people want to see that from me, and if they want my perspective on the particular things. Listen, Twitter is a platform that things happen really fast, and I don't always see every single tweet, and sometimes Contra deletes tweets, sometimes Natalie deletes stuff, and now her whole Twitter is gone, so I can't go back through and gather my own screenshots of any of the other stuff that she's said. You know, I'm trying to just focus on this one issue because I saw a pretty glaring problem with it. So beyond the scope of that one issue, I am open to the idea of responding to some of the other things that she has said, if people can provide me with a full accounting of screenshots. That's the one reason why at this stage it's not something that I am super comfortable doing, just that I don't know if I can trust that other people haven't selectively screenshotted things or haven't selectively omitted things. That is a concern that I have in addressing this broader situation. So in this particular microcosm, I have a very motivated idea of what a solution could be, but as far as people having general issues with Natalie, I don't have a good way to approach that right this second. But again, if people would want to see that, I would be very open to hearing what people's more general issues are with her, or other specific comments that she's made related to, like, the easiest thing for me to do is to cover the things about non-binary people. And as I previously said, I have been following Natalie's work, her YouTube, for a while, and I've seen all the same videos as everyone else, and I haven't picked up on it in the same ways. And I particularly mentioned her video, The Aesthetic. People used to complain about that one a lot, and I didn't see anything specifically problematic with it. And I will also say that I think it would be a good idea if people are very, very mad at her to revisit her video called Pronouns. I recently rewatched that one, and I think that it clarifies a lot of her comments on Twitter, because in the video, she has the space to actually write out her thoughts and edit them and put them in a longer format, and she said basically all the same things, but with more words and with a little bit more nuance, and she is, made herself very clear, in my opinion. So I suggest that people revisit that one, but if there are issues, I want to respect the fact that people have problems with her, and I think if people can get a more rounded perspective by listening to someone who doesn't have a knee-jerk reaction in this case, I would be happy to do it. If you like this video, please give me pretty analytics to look at and comments to read. I am a full-time student, so if you would like to tip me on PayPal or become a patron subscriber, those links are below, and I would really appreciate that. So yeah, if you want to subscribe to this channel, you can. Find me on Patreon, ring the bell for notifications. And I really hope you have an okay day. Bye. Thank you to all of my patrons. If you're a new patron this month, don't worry, you will be put on the list, but it will be after the month rolls over, okay? Alright, so thank you especially to The Gay Agenda, Amber Music, Jenny Swindles, Gretchen Becker, Wellington Marcus, Elizabeth Bartell, Pine Snake, Jess Zendrex, and Mr. Atheist.